Hey everyone, JavaMentor.net again, and today we will learn how to create a function and why is that important. First of all, let's create one very simple program. So this is the requirements for the program. You work in the US. On every amount of the money that you receive from your employer, US takes $500 as a tax. Additionally, if your employer is from some country that is not in the US, you have to pay $500 additional tax. Let's create a program for that. So you will, for the beginning, you will need two variables. One to say how much money your employer is giving you, and another, is your employer in the US or not in the US? So int amount, let's say that your employer is giving you $20,000, and let's say that your employer is based in US. Let's say that your employer is not based in US. Let's implement this logic. Now we have to create this same program, this same logic, but for the different amount. We want to calculate both for 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, 200,000, and so on and so on. We don't want to copy paste this logic 10 times for 10 different amounts. That's why we will extract this logic to one function. What is the function? Function is one piece of code that is doing something. Function has inputs, it has some logic, what will function do, and it has some output. In our case, inputs that are important is amount before tax and is employer based in US, and the output is amount after tax. That's what we are printing. Let's write our first function. So we will start with keyword static, which we will explain later in this playlist. So for now, every function will need static currently. And then we want the function name. So let's say that our function is called tax calculator. What is the output of our tax calculator? The data type of our tax calculator. The data type is a whole number, so it's integer. So here it goes, what is the data type of the output? That's what it goes here. And notice that it can be only one output. Function cannot return two things. It can only return one thing. But it can have multiple inputs. So what are the inputs? Amount. Take a note that for every input we need to define what is the data type of that input. So we are giving whole number amount and we are giving boolean is employer based in US. And then between those yellow brackets, we will create logic of this function, how to calculate that tax. So this is our logic. We can do copy paste basically, right? And then we want to return the result from our function. To do that, we use return keyword. And this is the result, right? Awesome, we created our first function. Now, instead of writing this logic here, let's delegate this work to our newly created function. Awesome, let's delete this and we will just call our function tax calculator and we will give our function required inputs. Remember, inputs for our tax calculators are amount and is employer based in US or not. So in our case, we just need to pass those two variables. and we want to print the result. But where is our result? So this function did some calculation and it's giving us some result, but we didn't store that result anywhere. We need to store that result in some variable to be able to use it later. So let's say int result equals tax calculator, and now we can print result. Run. It works. Let's try this with some with different numbers. 50,000 and employer is not based in US, and then print another result as well, second result. Awesome. We created two calculators. So basically we're calculating taxes for two amounts, and we wrote logic only on one place. We extracted our logic into the function. Let me tell you a few rules about functions. So first important thing to notice is that variable name that you pass as an argument to the function it's not mandatory that that variable has the same name as the parameter name. For example, I can rename this variable to x, and then I can pass that x inside our function. Everything will work properly. As long as this x is an integer, and in our case it is an integer, it will work properly. Of course, naming this variable x is not a good idea, because now code becomes less readable because we are not sure what x is representing. So make sure that to name your variables properly, but don't forget that argument names and here doesn't need to be the same. Now let's talk a bit more about signatures of the function. Let's first try to create one more function that has the same name and the same arguments as the previous one. So I just copy pasted the function and something is red. It says tax calculator is already defined in main. So you cannot have two functions with the same signature. Remember that. You can only have one function with the same signature. And what's included in the signature? In the signature, first thing that is important is function name. So if we just rename this second function to calculator, everything is fine. It works because name is not the same, so we have two different functions. This one is called tax calculator, this one is called calculator, all fine. But it's not only name that it's included in the signature, also arguments matters, and that means both order of the arguments and data types of the arguments are important. For example, you can have two different functions named the same but with different arguments. For example, if you just exclude this argument from the this second function, you see that now it's not red anymore, it's red here because your function cannot recognize what is this argument all about. But let's say that we return some arbitrary number from it. We have two functions which has the same name but different arguments, and that's fine. We can even have the same function named the same, two arguments both, but data types are different. For example, if first argument here is Boolean and let's say again that this function returns some arbitrary number, it's same again. It works because signature is not the same. Here, the name is the same, but arguments are not the same. Here you have first int, then boolean, and here you have boolean boolean. You can even have the same arguments just ordered differently. So you have int boolean here and boolean int here, and it's still fine. So in order to have the same signature, name needs to be the same, and the arguments need to have the same order and the same data types. Also note that return value output is not important at all regarding signature. So you cannot have like this. For example, if you want to create new function and instead of int you return, let's say, boolean, and you say here return true, it will still complain because signature is the same. This part is the same, and that is the signature. I want to show you a few more things before we move to the classes and objects, which will be in the next video. So for now, in this tutorial, we called our function tax calculator, we passed some arguments, and then we took the result and wrote that result to this variable. We did the same here. Did some calculation, and then the result of the function we wrote into this variable. And then we passed that variable to this system out println function. Println is a function the same as tax calculator. The only difference is that that println function was written by some Oracle developer that worked on developing Java. If you try Control click, you can see where is this function declared. It's declared in some class that is called printstream.java. If you scroll up, you will see public class printstream. So our class, our first file that we created is called main, and that's the name of our class. So println is basically a function. It has one argument, and that argument represents what will be printed to the console. Okay, so we called our function tax calculator, and then the result of that we wrote to the result. But we can do it directly like this. We don't need to go through the variable. We can call our function and then take that result and pass it immediately into another function. So we can chain functions like this. We can even go like this. We can do that 10 times if we want. That's one thing. And another thing is, okay, this makes sense. Another thing is, if we want to merge two textual data, for example, we said this way, my name is Spasoje. Okay, let's run that program. Nothing happens because I forgot to print that sentence. Okay, let's give it a try. Okay, my name is Spasoje. But let's say that this sentence is only this, and then my name is in another variable. So here we have name equals spasoje. How to merge those two strings? Well, merging strings in Java is done using plus operator. So if you say sentence plus name, it will be printed my name is, and then concatenated spasoje. Run. If we try something else just to make sure it works, yeah, that's it. Now, one trick is to make sure if you have numbers inside string, for example 11 here and 22 here, and you try to concatenate them like this to merge them, 11 plus 22 is 33, right? But since those things are strings, they will not be added like numbers. They will be joined like strings. So your result will be 1122. So this plus is now joining strings, it's not adding numbers. So we said that function is possible without parameters, right? So no parameters, function is fine. But in the same fashion, you can create a function that doesn't return a result, output value. For example, if you want to print something to the console, or if you want to save things into the file, or you want to save something into the database, or you want to call some external service or something like that, you don't need a result. You only need function to do something. In that case, you mark, instead of saying I need result of wall number or something like that, you mark function as void. And that function won't return result, which means no way you will have some return value. Java will even not allow you to do that. And when you call that function, you don't need to write something equals to your function. You only just call the function and it will do its job and it won't return any results. As you can see, it just print what's supposed to print without the result. In the next tutorial, let's learn about classes and objects. Those two concepts are core concepts of any object-oriented programming language like Java or C# or any other object-oriented programming language. Let's see you there.